hello. This is Red Hawk, and I'm coming to you from the deep end. I'm here with my cohorts, Marianne Rudis and Bob Hayes. We're a transcontinent group. Bob's down in Florida, Marianne's in Spokane Valley, Washington, and I'm in Spokane, Washington. You know, here at the deep end, we've talked about things and processes that life and the human family cannot do without. And the human family is growing. It's seeking to create a world that fits with nature, that is able to be sustained by nature. And we've talked about spirituality in just about every religion, in every spiritual sense. It has to do with living in accord, moving with it. Nature. One clear aspect of nature is diversity. If it wasn't for all the differences, it wouldn't be. Nature, life, and consciousness are literally dependent on nature and founded on nature and arises out of nature. Yet the human family has a difficult time honoring and managing the diversity of our own species. As a matter of fact, what really happens to the human family is we cut ourselves off. There's a great show that I will recommend to you. It's on, I believe, PBS. It's called Cities of Light, The Rise and Fall of Islamic Spain, and it offers a clear analog of the process of expansion and contraction and how it happens. And part of those things we're going to deal with a little bit. There are three aspects that are lifted up and define so well the challenge that diversity presents to the human family. And those aspects: fear, greed, and intolerance. I mean, think about it. Fear, greed, and intolerance. They keep us from each other. And today, America is a clear illustration. I mean, think about how America happened. From the beginning, the migration and the struggles of those early peoples coming for religious reasons, for money, for riches, for exploration. And then think of the Revolutionary War and the founding of these new ideas of freedom and inclusiveness. And then think about the uniting of these ideas around the Constitution. And then how those united ideas start to conflict and civil wars and conflict happen, how fracturing and attempts at purification then emerge, trying to keep people to all do the same thing. Think about banning books. We're going to get more to that. And then think about the crossroads that we're at now. What are we going to do with immigration? Are we going to fight the immigrants and demonize them? Are we going to bring them in and be enriched by them? Or are we going to just stagnate? Because the fact is right now, and you can look this up, we need about 500,000 immigrants every 3 months, minimum, if we're going to keep up. Because Americans aren't making babies. Be aware of this. And then we get to survival. We see how conquest and purification destroy the great diverse expansion and allow it to contract. And we can see this in America. I'll recommend another show to you. It's Immigration Struggles on CNN with Fareed Zakaria. It is brilliant. Really talks about what a quagmire we're in. And you know, it's not new. We think about immigration today and the differences. It's not new. And the Immigration Act of 1924 basically was a racist act that kept out 97% of the people who were trying to get into America. Think about that. And that did not change until Lyndon Baines Johnson in 1965. And I recommend you go in and listen to some of his speeches. They are so American and e pluribus unum, man. I mean, it's just amazing. But he opened up integration, and that's where the latest influx of Asians, Africans, and Hispanics came. And that's part of what's going on today, is people don't like that. They were okay as long as they were whites. You know, we could diss the Irish. We could diss the Italians. But, man, once you start dissing the the blacks and the Asians and the Hispanics, then you're called racist. Although in the 20s, the Italians were seen as a race. Eastern Europeans were seen as a separate race. Irish were seen as a separate race. You see, now we have a new flavor of fear, greed, and intolerance. And this immigration is a huge indicator of what's going on, of contraction. And this contraction that we're seeing, again, it's part of the pattern that has been there since the beginning, and America has gone through a few times. Not only do we abolish slavery, but now we're saying slavery was really a job skills program. Think about that. We're looking at sexual differences as those who are different as enemies. We're rewriting history. Think of what Christianity has become with Christian nationalism. And I will say that my own denomination, Disciples of Christ, they have totally rejected any concept of Christian nationalism. Immigration, those who are immigrating, they're the enemy. And let's look at books. In every system, one of the first things to go in this contraction are the libraries and the books. We want to control it. We want everybody to be like us, and if you're not like us, forget it. And yet, if everybody's like us, we're going to fail. It doesn't work that way. So I'm suggesting that diversity, human diversity, is the front lines of an evolutionary challenge. Out of the many, one. E pluribus unum. That's us, my friends. And what I've learned, is minorities are okay as long as they do not threaten the empowered. Diversity is okay as long as the dominant powers are assured security. But I'm also learning that instability and tension between the differences creates openings for new possibilities, new ideas, new ways of getting together. I've learned that everybody wins with a multicultural context, whether it's, and these are the things that have kept us apart, and these are the things that will save us. Country of origin, language, religion, tradition, literature, art, architecture, science. I'm telling you, man, if the human family doesn't learn this, we'll never make it. We will continue to chase our own ass in these contractual circles that literally diminish us and make us less than. We have to find a way for cultural interaction, for practical tolerance. We have to find a way to live together like a mosaic and see how we can enrich each other. We're in a hard place. And again, CNN's Immigration Breakdown by Fareed Zakaria, I recommend it. There are some LBJ speeches in there which totally capture who we are as a people and where our true power is. A brief history, following this thread, seeing how America's thinking has shifted and how now we're in a place of contraction. You look at the book, the book banning. You look at what we're doing to our libraries in some place. And let's face it, if you're a white racist and you really want to hunt a black person, you can go down to Florida and provoke a black person and then shoot them. We're cutting off ourselves from that which can save us. We saw the power of diversity in the rise of America. We saw it at the beginning. We saw it after our civil wars. We saw it after the Second World War. And we saw it after the passing of the Immigration Act of 1965, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Act. We saw this expansion of letting everybody in, of seeing who we are. I mean, most people don't realize that the GPS system that we have was invented by a black woman. We're missing it. We're missing what will save us by seeing it as a threat. So today, how can we embrace our differences and be enriched by them? For that is the way we overcome our fear and greed and intolerance. So that's my shotgun blast. I'm a total patriot, but I'm a patriot in the sense of the more differences we have and the more differences we can put into this, the more the richer we are and the more enriched we are. You look at all the great things that we have, just about every single one of them is from an immigrant, whether it's Apple, whether it's, Marconi and the radio, every piece. We really need to let people in. Right now, we need workers, but we're afraid of diversity. So what do? We got 1 million people at the border that many of them can use. We see to the north of us a sane immigration policy, an unbelievable sense of embracing diversity. Do you know that Canada, 20% of their people are now immigrants? They're not afraid of them. As a matter of fact, they're enriched by them, and they see a way of doing that. Go to Trudeau's speeches on this. You can Google them. So I just put a lot out there. I do think that diversity is both a threat to the human family and a salvific aspect for the family. So I think I'll start with Bob. Bob, this is a pretty big issue, it seems to me. The human family's stuck.
Yeah, maybe the biggest issue, because it's interesting how throughout history humankind has tried to rise above its animal instincts. That you talk about fear and you talk about greed and so forth. People have migrated from one part of the planet to another part since the very beginning. That's how DNA, is traced back, and you can go and see where your ancestors started. And it's never going to end because people need to get to a safe place. They need to find something that's better for themselves and their family. And so you've got this tension between people who are aspiring and striving toward a better life and people who are afraid that that's going to cause their life to change in a negative way. And I think that, as you very rightly said, most of the data that have been collected in terms of diversity show that diversification helps everyone. Companies who are diverse make more money. Institutions that bring in a diverse collection of ideas and a diverse cultural landscape are healthier. People are happier. But it's getting over those initial speed bumps of our animal nature. And I don't know if that's a good way to put it, but it's what comes to mind. We have to figure out how to look at each other more as equals and as deserving of opportunities and not as enemies. And that's a very, very difficult transition to make.
Yeah.
But I agree, we've got to do it.
And that's why I put it in such existential terms as an evolutionary challenge. Mary Ann?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting because you say, the United States was founded on immigration. I mean, we're all immigrants, everyone that's here, other than the Native Americans. And if that's one of our founding principles, why is this such an issue? And I think you're right that people feel threatened and they get to be afraid. And I think there is also something that is within us where like seeks like, where we want to be where we feel comfortable. We want to be around in an environment where we're not challenged or threatened, and something that reinforces us. And for us to be able to open our minds and expand to other ways of seeing things, other ways. I remember the moment when I realized, gosh, not everyone was raised the same as me. I mean, I could feel it in my soul. And I think that that's the step that we all need to make, that there is not just one way. And the idea of diversity, not only in human beings, but in all of nature, that how do you embrace that while remaining feeling safe and secure? And I think education and knowledge is the key to understanding that people are people, human beings are human beings, and we all want the same thing out of life.
Yeah. And, that's a couple things, we need a new narrative that can somehow acknowledge the existential need for diversity. And this gets into stories and things like that. It's interesting, if you go to that immigration breakdown show, they did actually a few people did these computer models. What would happen, because we are going through right now the largest migration since the post-World War II. That's on, everywhere that's happening, from the Ukraine to Syria to Venezuela to other South American countries. And the model was, what would happen if we just let everybody go where they wanted to go? And they said within 5 years, the world will make, from just those people, they'll be worth $9 trillion. So not only is diversity good for business, but it's good for the planet. And we don't have a way of talking about that. Although I will say, listening to some of those LBJ speeches, I really like that guy. He even when Vietnam screwed him over, he said, I'm screwed, so I'm leaving. I won't run for another time. And I respected that. But I think that what he did with the Immigration Act, and the fact is, if Kennedy was there, the Immigration Act, the Civil Rights Act, and the Voting Act probably would not have been passed. What he did to allow those to pass was someone who came from a non-diverse culture that was racist, and he brought, because he was able to talk about it, he brought America into a new understanding of our own diversity. Now, what we're experiencing is a backwash from that, because those people that came here in 65 had babies, their kids had babies, and now there's a lot, and now they say by 2045, America will not be white anymore. This is threatening, and it causes fear. And I think that fear, the greed, and the intolerance, there's something in the human soul that we have to somehow find an antidote.
Yeah. Somehow we have to change the orientation of the way we look at our borders. Why do we have borders? And are we hiding behind a wall, or are we opening our arms to make life more hopeful for other people? They have these immigration camps, or whatever they call them now, that are just, they're hellholes. If we took the money that is being spent on these water barriers and all of these border guards and so forth, and reoriented these camps to be orientation centers, to find out what these people can contribute, to find out what their aspirations are, help them find ways to fit in. It not necessarily immediate citizenship, but how about work visas, making work visas easier, taking steps to make life easier rather than continuing defensively. Because defensively, it's not going to work. It just is not going to work. It never has in the history of the planet. People have always migrated, whether it's the Celts, whether it's the Normans coming into Britain, whether it's, you just go down the line. There's always going to be migration. And we have to figure out a new mental orientation for how we approach this. And if we can't step out of that fear mode, defense mode, then we are going to stagnate.
And believe it or not, we have a system now called an asylum system. It came out of the Cold War when we were trying to allow a lot of these people, their best and brightest, to come to this country. However, Canada has what's called a merit system. Right now, we are in a deadlock, so we can't do laws. We can't do immigration law. We can't get rid of the asylum. One, the right wing likes the asylum system because it gives them something to demonize, and two, the merit system would mean huge changes. Again, Canada, 20% immigrants. That's kind of 1 out of 5. That's amazing, and they're becoming enriched. These people aren't Europeans and Africans and Asians. They're now Canadians, and this is something we're not grasping. I could talk about being Irish and German and Austrian. I've done my DNA stuff, but I'm an American. There's no American DNA unless it's DNA that's like mutts.
Well, it's a DNA of ideas, of principles. That's what we have to remember as a country, that we're not diverse people. We are one people trying to cling to a set of ideas, a set that encompasses justice and equal opportunity and so forth. And that's what makes us Americans. And that's what we've forgotten.
Well, how about that's what makes us humans? That we're all walking around, we're these thoughts and ideas and personalities, and we're just all walking around in different suits, right? And how do we kind of accept the fact that we are not our outer, there's something else to us as human beings, and that you talk about migration, and I remember seeing about the massive migration that's going to be incurring in the next couple of years, or because of climate change. People's habitats are being flooded out, destroyed, and how are we as a world going to be able to handle it? Not just a country, but how are we going to be able to handle that? I was, and this is anecdotal, but I was talking with an immigrant who came here. I think he was from the Philippines, and he comes in and he has a PhD from his home country. He cannot get work here using his education. How do we, you talk about having a place for immigrants to come and kind of assess what their skills are. How about if we figure out a way also to recognize their education and to recognize that a PhD in from another country may be just as valid as the one here.
And that's what the merit system is about. It does exactly that. It integrates people in on the basis of not who they are, but their education, their skills, their abilities, their capabilities. Over and over, we're seeing that this is a system that works, and other countries who have adopted it, and I think France is using it. I think England is just beginning to use it, although England is demonized. If you're not English, you're not really British. And yet, look at British's prime minister, is second generation Indian dude. So, what we're seeing is what diversity can do. And Bob, you opened up that, those companies that are diverse are the ones that are healthiest. And what we're learning, and this is a huge piece of the equation, health and wholeness. What constitutes health and wholeness? If all of me was a liver, I wouldn't live. I have to have all these diverse aspects literally pulling against each other. That's called, what the hell is it called? I can't remember. But there's a tension there. And diversity doesn't mean that the tension goes away. Diversity means that the tension is used to be more creative, to create a better lifestyle, a more integral lifestyle, and a way of living that is beneficial to more people, which both of you have mentioned. The whole key, and as you all were talking earlier, and I said this, we need a narrative to acknowledge the existential need of diversity, for people to see the other. When I went through the different things, I didn't say tolerance. I said practical tolerance. I don't have to believe in your religion. I just have to not take it to heart because it's different from mine. And whatever it is that can get the human being to expand our order of thinking to a larger context, again, this is a spiritual piece, that we as a people might live more in accord with the very root of what nature is. Nature is all these differences that allow one thing to happen, this biosphere, life. It's a trip, it's sacred, it's blessed, and again, I want us to see that diversity is an evolutionary challenge.
Imperative.
Yeah, imperative. And it's sad because for another year, I have a friend who sent out an invitation, but of course, we can't talk politics or religions while we're at that party, and he makes it very clear. And I'll be honest, that's the seeds of fascism. That's the seeds of squashing the very thing that will feed us and allow us and to be nourished. So here we are on the brink of something unbelievable as a planet. We're not just dealing with diversity in America or in Europe or in China or anywhere else. We're dealing with global diversity. We're dealing with differences where the people of different perspectives see the other as the enemy, and we all have nuclear weapons. Again, overcoming this challenge is an existential threat. And now we're coming to the edge of our half hour. I can't believe it. It really happened fast. Marianne, final comments?
I think that when it comes to diversity, it requires skill to be able to listen to people who are different from yourself. And so I would say that is one of the best things that we can do, not only for ourselves, for our country, for the world, for each other, is to learn how to listen to others and expand our own mind, step out of that, our own circle, our own, even if it's just one little thing, one little step leads to another step. And because we are all on this planet and we all have to pull together. So,
amen. Bob, final comments?
Well, I'm going to go against my normal way of thinking and try and be more optimistic today. I think that there are forces that are happening that will bring us more together and help us embrace diversity. Things like the arts, music, drama, all of these different things that we are able to appreciate regardless of what country it comes from. Look at rock and roll. We'll take that as an American contribution. How it swept the world, how it helped make political changes, how people were able to relate to one another through that medium. And I think that as long as we keep an optimistic eye and keep our creativity producing as much as we can that pulls us together, then we've got a much better chance of making it through these tough times. And I'm going to be optimistic that we're going to be able to do that.
I love it.
I like that, Bob.
I do too. Well, we've touched on something here. We've gone through it before, but I want to revisit health and wholeness. We are waking up to what is healthy. We didn't know half the stuff was unhealthy, 150 years ago. When Washington was on his deathbed, his left arm had been cut up because they believed bleeding was part of health. And I mean, he literally had his left arm out and was cut open. It's just an amazing thing when you think of how far we've come to understand what constitutes health, what constitutes wholeness. And of course, diversity, we know for wholeness to happen, we have to have the whole ball of wax. We have to have all the differences included. The Native Americans call it the council of all beings. And not only is that outside of us, but it's inside of us as well. This council of all beings, all the parts of us, trying to stitch together a life that is whole and connected and in accord and moves with the one and creates more health, more togetherness, more nourishment on the way. How do we do that? I can't say that I know, but I know we can look at health and wholeness and come to some real conclusions. Till then, blessings, my friends.